Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to those that are on YouTube, Facebook, those that are watching live, those of you that will be watching this on the replay. I want to encourage you to ask questions, post comments. You could put it in the chat box or the comments, or if you prefer, you could message me privately and I'll try to answer. We're learning a mimer today called the Avraham Zaken, which talks about Avraham Avinu, Abraham, at a later stage in his life. And specifically, we're going to explore some of the lifestyle or some of the routine behaviors of Avraham Avinu and the lessons that we could take for ourselves. This mimer that Rabbi said in 1978, or technically it was probably 1977 still, from his room after he suffered the heart attack. And for the winter, he was talking mostly from his room via a hookup. Here's the mimer. Avraham Zaken Baba Yamim. Avraham was old. He came in days, which means he aged. And the Rebbe brings that the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad, mentions in a book called Torah in his mimer, he says, he's actually talking about a different topic, but his topic there is, what is it that our sages use this statement that Yafa Shah Achas B'Tshuva Ma'asim Tevim Elam Hazam Mikol Chaya Elam Haba, that it's greater, one moment of tshuva and doing good deeds, which basically means serving Hashem in this world, is greater than the reward in the world to come, which obviously requires a lot of explanation. What does this mean? Imagine somebody told you that if you mow my lawn, I'll give you $20. And then you realize that mowing the lawn is more enjoyable than receiving the $20. So it's almost like saying the reward is less than the act. What does this mean? And to understand that, he quotes the Zohar. The Zohar tells us that Avraham Zaken Baba Yamim, he came Be'inun Yemin Elohin. He came in these supernal days, in these special days. What are these special days? So days in Kabbalah doesn't just mean days, but it also means garments. Just like you have garments that you put on, you acquire for yourself, whether it's a coat or a shirt or whatever it may be. Avraham Avinu achieved special garments, spiritual garments, through the garments of Torah and mitzvahs, or tshuva and ma'asim tovim, which through these garments, a person could have enjoyment from the Shekhinah and Elam Haba. So we're going to explain this later on in the mimer, but the idea here is that when a person acquires these garments, he has the ability to benefit or appreciate or enjoy the shine of the Shekhinah. You see, he'll tell us that we are different than godliness, right? We're creations. Even our neshama is a creation. And in order for the neshama to be able to appreciate godliness in the world to come, you tell me you have a reward. God's presence is going to shine and you're going to enjoy it. I don't necessarily enjoy these things, or not as much, or I don't understand how I could enjoy it. And the way that it works is through something called levushim, garments. When you have these garments, they become your tool or your receiver to be able to connect with it. But don't worry if it's a little bit esoteric. We're going to explain it some more. Now, this concept that Avraham Avinu aged, he came in days, means he came in garments, really applies to days literally. Because every day, he says, has to be a complete day. You have to maximize the day. Every day, how do you maximize it? By having the day filled with mitzvahs, doing mitzvahs. That's how you have complete days. Now, there's a saying from the Baal Shem Tov, which is known, that a person should never leave a day without doing a mitzvah. Meaning every day he accomplishes mitzvahs. Now, we're not talking about the mitzvahs that if you don't do them, then it's a transgression, like saying Shema, or putting on tefillin, or davening, these things. We're talking about, in addition to the required mitzvahs, that if you don't do them, you miss something, there is doing more mitzvahs, which you can do tomorrow, you could have done yesterday, you can do it later today. But the Baal Shem Tov said, make sure that you don't let a day go by without doing a mitzvahs. And that's what it means that Ba Bayamim, Avraham Avinu came in days. Every single one of his days, he did mitzvahs. He served Hashem every single day. All of his days were complete, and they were not, God forbid, lacking. And through that attitude, or through that way of living, every single day he's serving Hashem, he achieved these great garments, these great levushim. Now it's known, the question about this concept, this principle, that if you tell me that garments are this supernal, spiritual achievement, which is a result of doing Torah mitzvahs, then why are days important for this? You didn't miss even a single day of doing mitzvahs. Why does that matter? If the idea is to acquire garments, so let's say today I didn't do any mitzvahs, right? Any extra mitzvahs. Tomorrow I could do double. I'll get the same garments. If the point is that through doing mitzvahs, you acquire levushim, you acquire garments for yourself. So then if you don't do it today, do it tomorrow. Let's say Avraham Avinu missed a week. He was busy. He did whatever the minimum, but there was some extra mitzvahs that he could have done. He made up for them a different day. You're still getting the same amount of levushim. What's the difference? So why does it matter, he says, that every single day you have to have mitzvahs? If you're missing even one day, then you're missing a garment. Now again, you can't say what he's trying to teach us here is that a known idea that if you missed tefillin yesterday, you can't put on tefillin twice today. It's not going to help, right? If a guy didn't eat matzah last year, he won't be punished because it was a mistake, or he did shuvah, then Hashem will forgive him. But whatever matzah is supposed to bring you, right? That was for last year. You can't eat matzah the day after Pesach to try to achieve it. Now, there's other ways with tshuva, various different things that you could make up for the past, but it's not like double up today, right? You fast the day after Yom Kippur, I'll make up for Yom Kippur. It has to be on that day. We're not referring to those types of mitzvahs. We're talking about something very specific. We're saying that when a person goes through a day and he didn't do mitzvahs, additional mitzvahs, so to speak, he's lacking something. And the question is, why is he lacking? Do two tomorrow, you'll make up for today. But that's not the case. Now, to understand this, let's analyze this verse when Torah tells us that Avinu came in days. When Torah speaks to us about this greatness of Avraham, Torah relates that Avraham was Zaken, he was old, and he came in days. Now, before that, Torah has other descriptions about the greatness of Avraham Avinu. And not only in prior verses do you have descriptions of Avraham Avinu's greatness, but in this very pasuk, in the beginning, he says, Avraham Zaken, Avraham Avinu came old, and then came in days, which days we're saying are garments. Now, the way that descriptive titles work is you go from the smaller to the larger, from the lesser achievements to the greater achievements. So you're building up. So when the Torah says Avraham Avinu got old, and then he tells us he came in days, which we know that came in days means a spiritual achievement known as supernal garments, clearly that's greater than getting old. Now, getting old is a very great quality. Okay, not that people have a choice about it, but it represents something very, very holy. Chassidus tells us that Avraham Avinu Zaken, when he got old, it means that he was achieving some very great levels, spiritual levels. Ilui nifla b'yeser, a tremendously wondrous supernal level would probably be the way to translate it. Okay, Hashem says, "Come, put on my garment," whatever that means. Kabbalistically. But Hashem is referred to as Atik Yaimin, which is a very raw level of godliness, God's essence, let's call it, before it has a ability to relate to this world. Not before the ability, before it has the stage. God always has the ability because He's infinite, but doesn't even relate to this world yet. And when we say Avraham Avinu got old, it means Hashem told him, "Come, put on my garment." Excuse me. When we say afterwards, Ba Bayamim, he came in days, it's referring to something even greater than that. So we know that Avraham getting old represents Hashem telling him, "Put on my garment." Obviously, Hashem doesn't have literal garments. It's not physical clothing, but it's a concept. Which means that Avraham Avinu was Zakin. He was in the level of Avraham Avinu that he put on. Yeah, okay. So we need to understand what is this great advantage, what is this great quality known as coming in days, garments of the mitzvahs, to the extent that we say that you can't, that it's even greater than putting on Hashem's garments. Okay, so in summary, let's say this. We have a question. It says, Avraham Avinu came in days, Alter Rebbe says in a different mimer, that it means achieving supernal garments. What's the idea of supernal garments? Every single day when you do mitzvahs, you get a garment. The question is, why do you have to do it every single day? Just do it collectively. One day you do 5, the next day you do 0, the next day you do 1, whatever, you make it up. Why is it important? And clearly it is, that it has to be done every single day. To understand this, he says, look, when Torah tells us that Avraham Avinu came in days, it's not the first thing it says. It's a build-up. That's a very, very high level. In the very verse, the very same pasuk, before it says Avraham Avinu came in days, it says Zakin, he got old. And we know that when Torah says Zakin, it means Hashem told Avram, "Come put on my levush, my garment," which of course is a tremendously spiritually high level. Beyond that is coming in days. Is that those supernal garments that he achieved? What is it? And why does it have to be done specifically in a manner that's only when you do the mitzvahs on every single day and not collectively? So we'll understand this by first introducing a concept which is brought in Tanya and other places, that why does the neshama need garments altogether? Why does the neshama have to have levushim of Torah mitzvahs in order to have an enjoyment from the Shekhinah? We said the only way that the neshama could have its reward in the world to come, in the sense, what type of reward? That it enjoys the ziv, the shine of the Shekhinah. It has to have levushim and it has to have garments, spiritual garments, clothes. How do you get those? Through mitzvahs. But why is it so important to have those garments? He explains. Because the neshama is a creation, it's a spiritual being, right? It's godliness, but it is a creation, as is explained, that the neshama is the level of godliness, the way it becomes a nivra, a creation. And so much so that when it connects to Hashem, when it attaches itself to Hashem, it's an attachment which is not noticeable. It looks like it's two different entities. You have a soul with an identity, and this soul is attaching itself to Hashem. The efshar, it's impossible for a creation to grasp any type of grasping of Erin Separach, the infinite light of Hashem. So you have an neshama, which you want to give it enjoyment in Hashem's shine, the ziv of the Shekhinah, but it can't, because by definition, it's a creation, and a creation can't grasp that. The only way that it could grasp that, this is where levushim come in, when you have garments. And a person achieves those garments, that allows his neshama to enjoy the Shekhinah. Gives an example, which is brought in many places in Chassidus, and that's the idea of the shine of the sun. The sun is shining, right? But you can't look at the sun; it's too bright, right? With the human eye, you can't see it. The only way that it's possible is through a masach, through a screen, which is like a garment. Then you could actually receive it and get it, and it becomes functional. Because it's too bright. In a similar fashion, it's not exactly the same thing, but in a similar fashion, the neshama is a creation, right? It's a spiritual entity, it's a godly entity, but it's a creation. And in order for it to appreciate godliness, which is meaning grasping it on some level, not godliness, but the essence, in safe it needs to have garments. That's like the screen, that's the tool, I don't want to say filter, but that's the ability to do that. So therefore it needs it. Now, in order to be a intermediary between two things, you have to have an element of both of them in you. Okay? You can't just be an intermediary if you are one-sided, or you have nothing to do with any of them. You have to have some kind of commonality with each side, and that allows you to connect both. It's like if you're inside and outside, you want to connect the inside and the outside. If you're a little bit in, a little bit out, you can connect both. We're saying that garments allow the creation, the connection of the neshama, which is a creation, and the Ein Baruch Hu, which is obviously unlimited. It's not a creation. The way that they get connected is through garments. Now, the garments here are mitzvahs. Mitzvahs have this element of containing within itself both ideas. On the one hand, a mitzvah comes from the infinite place, which is unlimited. It comes from Hashem, right? It's Hashem's will. It's not something which is tangible. It's not something which is physical. At the very same time, the mitzvah descends into this world. And for example, tzitzis or tefillin, it's very physical. So the mitzvah has both elements. It's something very spiritual. It's godly, but it's a physical thing, right? Even take a look at a sefer. It's a mitzvah to learn Torah, but the actual Torah is written on, the thing that we're learning is written on a physical paper. So a mitzvah has a spiritual side to it, and it's also made up of something very physical. And these mitzvahs, which create levushim, that allows the connection between the neshama and Hashem, because the neshama, again, is a creation. So it's, for the purposes of this conversation, it's considered to be a physical thing. It's obviously not physical, but it's a creation. And you want it to connect and to grasp godliness, which is spiritual. It can't. The intermediary in between is mitzvahs. These mitzvahs create levushim, garments, because the mitzvah, again, has two parts to it. It's very spiritual because it's the desire of Hashem, it's the will of Hashem, and it's physical because it gets done, it manifests itself in a tangible, physical thing. We're going to stop here, and with Hashem's help, we will continue tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Please like, share, subscribe. And again, feel free to ask any questions or comment, and I'll try to answer it.